First of all, I bow down thousands of times at the lotus feet of my spiritual master. Nittilila Pravishta Om Vishnu Pada Stotra Smad Rupanuvicharivarya Srila Bhaktivedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj. I offer my obeisances again and again to my Guru's Guru, and to his Guru, and to his Guru, and all the great masters in our spiritual succession. By whose causeless mercy and diligent endeavors the nectar of pure love descends from the spiritual plane to this world. And finally, I offer my pranam to all of you. In the Padma Purana, Vishnu Purana, it is said, Vishnu Shakti Paraprakta Keta Gatya Yata Para Avidya Karma Sangyanya Tritiya Shakti Isyate. It's a very beautiful verse of Sanskrit poetry, and it gives us a summary of reality itself. It's saying Vishnu Shakti. Shakti means energy, and Vishnu means God. Vyapnoti iti Vishnu, who pervades the entire universe, material and spiritual worlds, can be called Vishnu. So, God, He has Shakti, potency. But this potency acts in different ways and takes on different names according to the function that that potency is performing. So Vishnu Shakti Praprakta. First of all, there is the Para Shakti, that is the transcendental spiritual energy. This energy is, the manifestations of this energy are eternal, as opposed to everything in this world. Everything here comes and goes. Everything here evaporates like mist. Everything here vanishes without a trace like a dream. But in the transcendental world, that is the Parashakti, the spiritual energy, every existence is Sat, eternal. Not only Sat, eternal, but also Chit, conscious. Just as in this world everything is inert and dead. These solid things around us have no feeling. They have no consciousness. Even our own body, if you just restrict the blood supply to your hand, after a few minutes your fingers have no feeling. So even our own body is a dead, inert, mature energy. It only appears to be alive because of the presence of the Spirit. So in the spiritual world, everything is eternal, everything is conscious, Sat, Chit and Ananda, full of joy, ecstatic. Such varieties of joy are there. So that is called Parashakti, the spiritual energy of God. Then Ketragakya. Ketragya means the second energy of God is Ketragya. Gya means one who knows, and Ketra means the field, the knower of the field. That means you, the soul, the Atma. This body is considered to be like a field, because if you plant some seeds in a field, something will grow. And as everyone knows, as you sow, so shall you reap. So the human body is like a field. And the activities that we perform with this body are like sowing. And then the reactions to those activities come back in the form of karma. You see? And therefore this body is a field. Where we are continually sowing and reaping. A harvest. Sometimes relatively good and sometimes relatively bad. So all the experiences that everyone is having in this world, the so-called fortunes and misfortunes, are simply the fruits growing in the field that they themselves have planted. And that cycle is going round and round. So, the soul is not this body, but the soul is a particle of spiritual God, spiritual energy, and it is residing in this field and engaged in sowing and reaping constantly. So then, there is the next energy, avidya karma sangyanga, the energy of avidya, ignorance, the material energy, this material world, the earth, fire, air and space we see around us. It has the impression of reality. There's a reason this world has the impression of reality. Because it is a reflection of the reality. Why is the sky blue and the grass green? Because in the eternal reality, in the spiritual world, the sky is blue and the grass is green. And this world is the reflection. So the speciality of a reflection is that it appears to have qualities that it doesn't have. Just now we've taken a very delicious meal. But if you take a plate of food and put a mirror next to it, in the mirror you can see a plate of food. However, if you try to lick it, you will not taste anything. You will not get any sustenance, nourishment or vitamins or minerals or anything from that reflection. Though it appears to be exactly like the nutritious food. And so this world is like that. This world, being the temporary reflection of the spiritual world, appears to have everything. It appears to be permanent. It appears to be conscious. It appears to be full of joy. But when we try to taste it, we will be sorely disappointed. However, because of the nature of illusion, then we just think, oh, yes, everything's not quite perfect now. If I just adjust things a little bit more, just tweak the situation a little bit, then the joy and everything that I'm looking for will be there in this plane. But it won't. It won't. And that's too much for the general person to even admit to themselves. When someone admits that to themselves, that's really the project of the existentialist philosophers. They speak about being authentic. Jean-Paul Sartre wrote a drama called Nausea, and it's about the attack, the panic attack, that causes one to even vomit when one sees the naked face of the world as it is, as just being. If we'll see it without our eyes being misted over by the fantasies of how we will enjoy, we will not enjoy. You will grow old, you will become afflicted by diseases, and you will die. And in the meantime, you have to struggle and with thousands of conflicts with all the living beings here who are competing with each other over limited resources. And that is basically a summary of life. No one wants to face that, because if you faced it, you would just go into a panic attack. You see? So, yet, one must do that. One must become sober, one must become grave, and you can do it if you know that actually, fortunately, you are not meant to be here. This is not your home. This is not who you are. There is an alternative. There is a marvelous, wonderful spiritual prospect. If we, instead of seeing this world as our amusement park, instead of seeing this world as a facility for our enjoyment, we see the world for what it is. It's a facility of our education. It's more or less like a correctional facility. In fact, in Sanskrit, the material world, the goddess of the material energy, she's called Durga. So Dur means difficult, and Ga means go. Durga, it's difficult to get out. So Durga also means in Sanskrit a prison. So it's kind of like a prison in one sense for the souls. So the souls who are rebellious, who are selfish, who have the unpleasant qualities and attachments and so on, they become confined, they become conditioned in the prison-like material nature. But it's the wonder of this illusion is such that it does not matter how much people suffer. Due to illusion, they think it's okay. You know, if you go to visit a friend in hospital who's just been in a car accident and his arm is in a sling and his leg is a sling and his face is in a brace and everything, and then you come there with some flowers and you say, "Hi Peter, how are you?" And you say, "Oh, fine." Huh? This is the nature of illusion. If a soul falls into the lower species, like a pig, and the pig is just lying in the stool, in a drain, like that, he thinks, "I'm in heaven." So the material world is really the correctional facility, and it's an educational place. And if we see the world as being a place of our education rather than our enjoyment, then we'll never be disappointed. Because for those who are searching, the teachers and the answers and the education, everything will be there, will come, and the syllabus will be so perfect that when we graduate we'll think, wow, that was a great educational system. Better than the state school. Better than private school. Yeah. So, 3 energies of God. The spiritual energy comprises the spiritual world. The material energy manifests the material world. And in the middle, that is called Tatastha Shakti. The marginal potency is the soul, the jiva. So the soul is called Tatastha, the marginal potency, because he has kind of dual citizenship, if you like. He can move towards the spiritual energy or go deeper into the material energy. And that is the free will, which is there for everyone. Free will is an interesting concept, because, let's say, does anyone here believe in astrology? Does anyone like totally not believe in astrology? Don't be shy.
You don't believe in
No, okay. Okay, so astrology is basically the theory that by looking at the stars, the situation, the position of the stars at the moment of an individual's birth, it's like a barcode, right? If you go into the jungle and show someone in the jungle a barcode, they'll just won't know what that is. Maybe it's a new design of face paint or something. You know, they don't know. But someone who knows the science knows how to interpret that barcode, and it will tell you exactly what the product is, where it came from, and what the expiry date is, and the price and everything, like that. So astrology is essentially the theory that there's like a barcode, that all the stars in the universe, whatever moment you are born, at that moment, a person who is expert can interpret that and will tell you things about your life. Now, you may or you may not believe, but if you go to India and you meet with some expert astrologers there, then you will accept, you will believe. I have a friend, she's an actress, she's a French actress. Oh, did you see the TV show The Tudors? You did? I didn't, I don't have a TV. But anyway, she was the Queen of France in that. Yeah. So, it's being recorded now, she'll be embarrassed if she hears the recording. So anyway, so she did not believe in astrology. And she went to India. So in India they have a tradition of brahmanas, of priests. They call the Bhrigus, the line of Bhrigu Rishi. It's thousands of years old. Bhrigu Rishi is a legendary saint from millions of years ago, mentioned in the Vedas. So in their line, the line of that family, they have astrologers. They call Bhrigu Nadis, and they have a few centers in India. They have one in Jaipur, in Hosayapur, and Kerala, and a few places in India. So if you go to visit them, then when you come, then they're kind of expecting you. And they say, yes, you sit down right there, and they go into their room, and they have these thousands of old palm leaves. And one of them is your story. And they go and they look through the file, and then they pull out your palm leaf. And then they come, and then they tell you. You don't have to say anything. They will tell you. Oh, how many brothers and sisters you have. If they are still alive, whether they've died, whether you're married or whether you're divorced. How many children you have, how many more you will have in the future, whether you'll get remarried again. Everything. But they'll tell you about your past first. Because that's all verifiable. And you didn't fill in a form or anything. And I didn't ring them up beforehand and tell them how so-and-so's coming and give all your biographical details. No, it says, you just go and they'll tell you, and your jaw will drop on the ground. Like this. And then they'll tell something about the future as well. So, and it's not actually mystical, it's not magical, it's a science like a barcode. If you know how to read it, it's done. Now, Swarna, my wife also, she's a Vedic astrologer. She was the manager of the world's first Vedic astrological software company, Parashura's Light, for about 7 years. And she also has expertise. And I have seen, and I can talk about it because she's not here. At first I was a little bit concerned that she wasn't here, but now I'm happy she's not here because I can talk about it. I've seen her, and you may or may not believe this, meet someone, hello, how are you, like that, and then look at their face, and from the face she can see where the planets are in that person's horoscope. And ask, and then, yes, how did you know? So, it's not only the face of the person, but also how they live, where they live as well, because the place where you live, the different directions are ruled by different planets. And so if in that particular period in your life certain planets are influencing, then you'll have whatever, your bathroom in this corner, and your settee in this corner, and the bookshelf in this corner, and so on. And so from a person's living space, you can also identify where the planets are in their horoscope at that time as well. So that art in India is called Vastu. Vastu is basically architecture. And what you do is you design your living space in such a way that it's in tune with the planets, and that mitigates the effects of any inauspicious planetary influences at that time. So now, my purpose in speaking these things is not to give you a lesson in Vastu or astrology or anything like this, only to raise the very interesting issue that at every moment in our life we feel ourselves to be making choices. And we're making those choices in real time, on the spot. Even, what to speak of others, even we ourselves don't know what choice we'll make until we say, now I'm going to do this. It feels like this. But actually, this is not the fact. Because from the stars, from your living space even, what choices you'll make and which direction you'll go in your life and everything is already written before you make that choice. So how is it that on the one hand we feel that we have free will and independence, and on the other hand the script was already written? You cannot reconcile that by the intellect, by thinking about it. But it can be said that the soul is Ketraga, the knower of the field. We are the conscious entity who knows this physical body and mind. So the physical body and mind are inherited as the fruit. They are the crop, the harvest of the past karmas. And we're experiencing them. So when we have ideas, when we choices, and we think of things to do, it's not that we're just identifying with the mind, which just the fruits are appearing in the mind, are the reactions of past. But we're identifying with it. You can, if you practice meditation, realize that you are Shakshi, that means the witness. You are the witness of your mental activities. It's only when the spirit comes of I am the enjoyer of the world, I am the controller of the world, when the selfish spirit comes, when there's the absence of humility, when there's the absence of awareness, when there's the absence of wonder, of the marvels of the creation of God, that our consciousness becomes so absorbed in the mind, we think that the thoughts and ideas which are growing in this field, which are the reactions of past karma, is actually us. And it isn't. It's not. There's a wonderful story once, some yogis, they went to their guru and they asked him, it's very difficult to do yoga because yoga means to detach the mind from the external sense objects. Because when you meditate, the mind is always going into the external sense objects. So, but it seems like it's the nature of the mind to think of worldly things, and it's the nature of the world to make impressions in the mind. So it seems like this endeavor of yoga is very unnatural. So how can you become perfect when it's the tendency of the mind to go out and the sense objects to come in? And so their father, he thought about it, and then he couldn't come up with the answer. Their father and their guru, Brahma. He couldn't come up with the answer. And just then, one avatar of Krishna appeared, the Hansa avatar, and said to them, actually, yoga is not the technique how to detach the mind from the external world. Yoga is the process of detaching you from the mind. You understand? So the Ketragya, the Atma, the soul, is the pure conscious being. And everything that you are experiencing is not Atma, but the field. Both the physical body, the activities of the physical body, and the movements and ideas going on in the mind are external. They're both parts of the field, but not the self. And so that identification with the activities of the field is called ahankar, or ego, false ego. That ego has to go. Then people make the mistake. If I get rid of the ego, then I won't be an individual anymore. Everything will be one, and I'll be you and you're me, and we are all together, and I am the walrus. Right? These ideas, they come from too much LSD, I think. So, no, we are all individual beings. If you step on a needle, I don't feel it. You feel it, I don't feel it. We are individual souls. So, to get rid of ego doesn't mean to be free from your individuality. It means to be free from the illusory individuality and discover your true spiritual individuality. If God has taken the care to make every snowflake different, and they only last for a few minutes, and no one's even looking at them, then what to speak of souls? All souls are unique and wonderful and individual and have a role to play in the eternal Leela of God. But right now, the marvelous, the magnificent qualities of the soul are covered by the field, the physical body and the mind. And as long as we identify with them, then the fruits are coming. And as this body is a microcosm of the universe, which is the macrocosm, so there's a relationship between the two. And that's why there is this empirically inexplicable relationship between you, your insignificant individual momentary fate, and all the planets in the universe. There's a connection. There's an empirically inexplicable connection between them. So now the question is, we have two energies. On one side, the spiritual energy, the world of God, and on the other side, this material world. And in the middle, we have Atma, the soul, the Tatastha Shakti, the marginal potency. We can go this way or that way. So, generally, we see people, they're absorbed in the world. Their meditation is how I will be successful next year, or the year after that, or the year after that, and so on. So they're absorbed in the dreams. But in a moment, all of this will disappear. We don't like to think about it, but death will come. Death will come. And the Atma will be separated from that body, and then it will appear in another body. That is reincarnation. And this will go on again and again. It's very frustrating. The example that the Vedas give is the example of a deer. There's a deer in the forest. And in the forest there's green trees and grass and things to eat. And on the edge of the forest, then a desert begins. So the deer was wandering through the forest and came to the edge of the forest and the desert. Looking in the direction of the desert, the heat of the sun created a heat haze. And when you look into the heat haze in the desert, it can appear like a mirage, as if water is there. So then the deer was thirsty, and the deer ran after the water. But the problem with the water which is not water, which is a heat haze, is that it always stays the same distance away. So as you go towards it, it recedes. So the deer was running and running and running into the desert until he died of thirst and exhaustion, like that. So the souls who have turned away from God and turned away from the spiritual energy, their consciousness is looking towards the material energy that is shimmering and glittering as if it has all the promise of the spiritual energy. But there, instead of God being the center of everything, the starring role has been offered to you. So that's very attractive. And the soul sets off looking. Oh, happiness is just around the corner. But you know, there's a saying even in English, the grass is always greener on the other side. This means that when there's something that you want, but when you get there, you find out, actually, this is really not what it was all cut out to be. And it's not what I want. And then you look back and you say, actually, that's where you just came from. And so you go backwards and forwards and you never find what you're looking for. So the world is like that. There's always the next step, the next stage. But as you chase after happiness, it remains always at a distance until one becomes exhausted and ruined, like that. And so Maya, the experience of Maya or illusion. Remember that example, the deer leaving the forest which was full of lush grass and everything he wanted, and entering into the dry desert, chasing something which wasn't there. So that's worldly life. So what is required? We have to turn around, turn our face, turn our attention towards the spiritual energy. Now how can we do that? Because right now we have bodily consciousness, we have no perception of the spiritual energy. Our senses are actually contaminated by matter. And because of this, we cannot experience the tangible spiritual thing. When we think of spirit, we think of something that's intangible. We think of something like whatever, Charles Dickens' Ghost of Christmas Past or something, you know, some kind of apparition that if you touch it, it will be all like vapor. No, the spiritual things are more tangible than material things. However, our senses cannot perceive them. And so the example given in the Vedas is an example of jaundice. Perhaps you've heard of the disease jaundice. Have you ever seen someone with jaundice? They go yellow. They go completely yellow. And one of the peculiar aspects of jaundice is that if you eat sugar, it tastes bitter. Now sugar is not bitter. It's only because you have the disease jaundice that if you eat sugar, it tastes bitter. So in the same way, just as the person with jaundice is incapable of sensing the actual taste of sugar, so the person who's conditioned by the material body and mind is incapable of tasting the sweetness of God, of God's name, His form and qualities, pastimes, all the glories of God. Hearing them, it seems strange and foreign and whatever, or mythological, or whatever theory a person may come up with due to their conditioning. They cannot taste it. However, what is the cure for jaundice? The cure for jaundice is not a medicine. You just eat candy. You just keep taking candy and the jaundice will go away. And the sign that the jaundice is going away is that now of course the candy is really bitter. It just so happens that the medicine tastes so bad, but you have to take it. So the person takes the candy and it's disgusting, but they have to keep taking it. And what happens is, as they're being cured, the sign that the cure is going on is that it begins to taste sweet. Very sweet. So in the same way, in our conditioned state, when our consciousness is absorbed currently in matter, we can turn our attention towards God and the spiritual world, beginning with the most rudimentary sign of personality. You know, when you meet someone, the first thing you do to get acquainted with someone is, what's your name? Right? That's the first thing. Then after you learn the person's name, then you discuss and you try to become acquainted with their qualities, and so on, and gradually relationship comes. So in the same way, the realization of God comes in stages. Name, and then form, then qualities, then entourage, the associates of God, and then the lila, the play, the divine play of God. Just like here in this world, everyone wants to play, but they're forced to work. Yeah? But in the spiritual world, everything is play. That in Sanskrit, that's called lila. Divine play. Play means the things that we do without any reason, simply due to the overflowing of exuberance. The activities that are done simply due to feeling so exuberant. You do. The example is given of there was a man alone in the forest with a bottle of wine. And after drinking half of it, he started to dance. So why did he dance? There was no one there to see him. Why? Because after half a bottle he's feeling kind of, it's just, the joy's coming out, okay? So that's a mundane example, and it's also a short-lived joy, and until he, has problems with his liver and everything. But in the spiritual world, God himself, for no reason, having no cause other than his own explosion of exuberance, and all the living entities there, they play. And the play is something also that gives us joy. And nothing gives us more joy than a loving relationship. And so the nature of the divine play is the exchange of love between the Supreme Personality of Godhead and each and every living entity. So, Craig was just telling today about the advantages of private lessons. When you have a student, it's not a whole class, it's only one person. It's just more, you can make deeper relationship. It's more fulfilling on all ways. So that's a very wonderful thing about Krishna. In Sanskrit, God is called Krishna. That though God has a form, the form itself is unlimited. It simultaneously exists in unlimited dimensions. It's an unconditioned form. So the Vedas give an example that when Krishna wanders into the forest to enjoy a picnic with his friends, he sits down and they take out their different preparations and they're tasting, oh, this is good, try that, and feeding each other. And so many friends sit around him, and some in front, on the sides, and then in circles all the way around Krishna. And Krishna's talking with one of the friends. However, for each and every soul, that same lila, that same play is going on in a dimension just for them. And therefore, even though objectively if you stand back you'll see, oh, there's Krishna talking with a friend while surrounded by everyone, each person who is there experiences that I'm the only one he's talking to. In other words, though all the living entities are many, and God is one, because of his unlimited nature, he's personally reciprocating with a whole reality just for you, that individual, by which you can fully express your devotion. And the most wonderful thing is that though God is all-powerful and the supreme controller of everything, if a tiny insignificant soul has love, then that love controls him. And he becomes the servant of his own devotee. Because that's the nature of God. God is loving, very compassionate. And when he sees someone's devotion, he's moved by that, deeply moved, deeply grateful, and wants to be the servant of his own servant. So, what we want to do, we want to know practically how can we take the steps from being absorbed in matter, what is the medicine by which we can turn our attention and be transferred from the material energy to the spiritual energy. So in Sanskrit that is called bhakti. Bhakti means service. Service. Just as relationships in this world are based on sense gratification. If two people have a relationship, they're generally related because they're fulfilling each other's demands. And if someone will no longer fulfill the demands of the other person, or they fulfill the demands of someone else, then that relation is broken. You see? Whereas in the spiritual world, there's no selfishness, there's no sense gratification there. So all relations are only based on one thing, seva. The Sanskrit word is seva, English word is service. Again we see how the Sanskrit is the mother language of our own language. Service. Loving service. So, how can a soul in this world begin to serve God? It goes through the stages of name, form, qualities, pastimes. Realization comes in this way. So we can begin to serve God simply by keeping our consciousness in contact with the vibration of the name of God. And so this is the type of meditation we've done here together with some instruments. We were singing Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare. A mantra composed of the names of God. And by keeping the consciousness in contact with that, then the consciousness gradually becomes purified. Even if you don't like it, don't worry. It's like the candy when you have jaundice. You see, it might taste bad even, but just take it anyway. And if you'll take it every day, with honor, with respect, and in a very regular way, it's good if you can wake up early in the morning and sit still without moving and just be absorbed in the mantra. And spend a little time like this every day. You'll see it will make you become very calm, make you become undisturbed by the dualities and the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune. And so there's just like a general benefit of well-being will come at once. But as you go on chanting, then the senses, the consciousness becomes cleansed. The soul becomes a witness. You'll be constantly in the position of Shakshi, witness consciousness. You will be situated steadily in seeing, being the witness of the activities of your body and your mind also, without identifying with them. That's a state of being fully alert. As soon as ignorance comes, as soon as the lower consciousness comes, then there's identification with the body and the mind. And we lose our awareness of God. So as you chant more and more, that perfect state of being awake, of being alert, of being consciousness, it will become your steady state of consciousness. That's also part of a beginning stage. And when you are situated in that consciousness of realizing yourself to be a soul, then you will see everyone else completely differently. Instead of judging people in terms of what their qualifications or disqualifications and eligibility and ineligibilities are, in terms of their vices and virtues, just as you know that you are a soul, you will see everyone else. Here's a soul just like me. But different souls are covered by different degrees of entanglement, they've planted different seeds and they're reaping different fruits and so on. But essentially within is someone just like me. Another soul, part and parcel of God. It is said that the mind is affected by rajas, the mode of passion. When you think, as practically everyone does, moment by moment they have an awareness of themselves being better than other people. And the ironic thing is everyone thinks like that. So everyone can't be right. So this feeling that I'm better than someone else, or I'm more special or somehow than anyone else, this is a symptom of illusion. The rajas, the mode of passion in the mind. So when the heart is purified, then truly we feel the connectedness to other souls, and we share in their happiness and distress. In the Bhagavad Purana there, Sri Krishna said, truthfulness doesn't mean just speaking facts. That's not truthfulness. Truthfulness means to have the moment by moment awareness and empathy for the happiness and distress of others. When their distress is your distress, when their joy, and I don't mean material joy because that's just another kind of distress, but their joy of spiritual advancement also becomes your joy, then that's called being truthful. Because you're situated on the platform of truth. I'm a soul, you're a soul. And we're either going in the wrong way, which is not good for us, or moving in the right way. So, seeing everyone on the spiritual platform and sharing their successes and failures spiritually, feeling that this is what it means to be truthful. So, you can begin by singing, chanting Hare Krishna, or you can do a private meditation every morning. You can sit peacefully and chant the mantra. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Rama, Hare Hare. And try to be absorbed in the sound. And just wait patiently. Just be patient. And a wonderful transformation of consciousness will come. Don't try to force it. Don't try to imagine anything. It will happen by itself. No, once there was a frog, and he was very curious, and he wandered into someone's kitchen. And in India they keep milk in big clay pots. So there was a big clay pot of milk, and he jumped in. And then when he'd had his fun there, he wanted to leave, he tried to get out, but he couldn't. There was no edges on the pot that he could grab and get out. So he kept slipping into the milk. So he was now condemned to a slow and painful death by drowning. So the frog was there, and he was just kind of like treading water, trying to stay. What to do? And he was couldn't get out. He was going like this for hours and hours and hours and hours, and after about 24 hours he was running out of energy, and he thought, that's it, now it's all over, I'm going to die. And he just couldn't even move anymore, and found himself floating on a blob of butter. Because that's what happens if you kick your legs out in the milk. It turns into butter. So it was very unexpected for him. So chanting is a little bit like that. Just chant. And just when you're thinking, oh God, nothing's happening, I've been doing this for ages and ages, but my guru, my teacher told me to go on and on, like that, then suddenly you will see, like a miracle, a marvelous grace will appear, will rise in the heart, and your consciousness will be transformed in ways you cannot imagine. So I'm giving guarantee, money back guarantee on this also, and on the authority of my spiritual master and his spiritual master and all the great sages of India for thousands of years. They have directly realized this reality of the transformation of consciousness from the absorption in the inert material world to the realization of the beautiful form and qualities, associates, the entourage of the Supreme Lord and His eternal play, which is our home and our goal. The soul is going there. But in our meditation we can have a preview of the spiritual world in our meditation here and now. And then when that realization comes, then there's the full and complete confidence. And then there's no fear of death. There will not be death. It is said in the Vedas that the name of God is Amrita. Amrita means the nectar of immortality. If someone drinks ambrosia, they become immortal. So in the same way, those who drink the nectar of this mantra, the names of God, they become immortal. What does it mean? Actually, the soul is never the body. Just like you may think, oh, this Prem Prayojan is going on and on about illusion, but I'm not in illusion. Who does he think I am? I'm smart. Really? Every night you fall asleep, and every night you dream, and every night in your dream you don't know that you're dreaming. We feel a confidence that we're not in illusion, yet there is a direct demonstration of our susceptibility to be in the utmost illusion is a common experience every single night. When you dream, you think you're awake. Many people, they dream about being at work. If they knew that it was a dream, they would take the day off. Right? Because they're not going to get paid for overtime. Right? So, at night, when we fall asleep, we go into a dream. In our dream, we have a body. We have a body. Who's ever flown in their dream? Did you ever want to dream when you're flying? Do you ever have a dream where you got injured? Or anything like that? Whatever. But anyway, when you wake up, you're neither injured and also you cannot fly. So whatever you dream of, whatever happened to the body in the dream is absolutely not true. It wasn't you. It wasn't you at all. So as you are not this body in your dream, but completely you are convinced that you are. So similarly, you are not this body that you have now. Though you are completely convinced that you are. But you are not. You are completely distinct from that. So when the consciousness becomes enlightened by the chanting of the holy name, you wake up and realize that you are distinct from that body. One even becomes unconscious of the body in the state of trance, in samadhi. And the soul has its own spiritual body, an eternal, blissful spiritual form. So what will happen is, as you are going on in your life, as you become more advanced and older, then the day will come when you are in meditation and you will be situated in your spiritual body, and everyone will see that you have died. That means that the soul has left behind this gross body, but you were absorbed in your spiritual body, so you did not even know. You were completely unaware that from the objective point of view of this plane that you had died. And therefore, it is called Namamrita, the ambrosia of immortality of the name. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. By this mantra, you will become immortal, and you will not know what is death, even in this life. You will not know. Okay, so I will conclude my presentation for today there. And if there are any questions, we can take a few questions. We're chanting mantra with a mala. You know, all the religious traditions, Christianity, Sikhism, Buddhism, Sufism, Islam, Hinduism, they all have a common connection, and that is they have like a rosary, some beads, and some prayer or mantra is said on each bead. That's to keep count, because at first we don't have a spontaneous attraction to it. So what we try to do is the beads keep count how much we've been meditating, and we note that, and then slowly start to increase, and so gradually we become more and more absorbed. It's a little bit by force. It takes determination, because there's resistance. The body and mind make resistance. The soul has been embedded in matter for a long time. When you try to get out, it's like trying to get your Wellington boot out of a swamp. You know? It's like you are not the boot, you're the foot, but your foot is stuck in the boot and the boot is stuck in the swamp. So it's like that. When you try to come out of the material world, there's some resistance there. So at first you have to apply yourself with determination. But after some time, as the disease is destroyed, the taste will come in the name, and then it will be you will very spontaneously be attracted. At that time, you won't need to keep count or anything. It won't be important. Though generally the saints continue to keep count just to set a good example to everyone else. So in all traditions of the world, the use of mantra or a prayer with rosary is there as the preliminary discipline. And so we have some malas here. If you like to, do you mean like right here? We have a bag of them even. Oh, there's only one in this bag. Is this yours? Right, okay. So here's a very beautiful mala. It's made in Christianity. The malas are called rosaries, because I have a friend who does this. She has a big rose garden, and she picks all the roses, all the petals, and then you put the petals in. She's got an iron, like a witch's cauldron, and you throw the petals in the iron cauldron and put it on the fire, and a little bit of water, and you stir it. Doesn't matter if the petals are red or yellow or pink. You just stir it for a long time, and all the petals boil down, and it becomes like a black goo. And then you take this black goo and you roll it into a ball and put a needle through it, and then put it on some greaseproof paper to dry. And it dries and becomes these black beads, which are used in the Christian rosaries. So that's why they're called rosaries, because they're made of the boiled down essence of fragrant rose petals. So that's really nice. But in India, the bhaktas, the devotees, their mala is made of tulsi. And the tulsi is the Indian name. The English name is sacred basil. So even in European culture, this plant was considered to be a sacred plant, sacred basil. So it's considered to be very, very pure and blessed. So there are 108 beads. The Christian rosaries also have 108. The Sikh rosaries have 108 also. So the Buddhist rosaries have 108 also. So we're discussing very universal principles.
What's the significance of 108? Is there?
In different cultures, they have different types of significance related to the culture it's coming from. But there's a mathematical significance to 108 as well, from the point of view of mathematics numerology, in regard to the structure of the whole universe. Something like the diameter of the Earth is exactly 108 times that is the diameter of the Sun, and the distances between the planets, and you'll find they're always multiples of 108. There are mathematicians and others who have written articles if you want to go into it more deeply, but this number 108 has some profound connection with the entire structure of the universe. And say in the Vedic culture, it's said that Krishna, this bead represents Krishna, and there are 108 angels or gopis who are his very closest and talented spiritual beings. And so in the culture of bhakti, it's considered to be like a dance, a circle dance of the Supreme Lord with his 108 most marvelous spiritually embodied virtues. So one mantra is chanted on this bead is not chanted on, but you start, there's a larger side and a smaller side. You start on the larger side and chant one mantra, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Ram, Ram Ram, and then again to the next one, until you go all the way around. So that's 108 mantras. That's called one round. And so you can begin with perhaps 4 rounds, 8 rounds, and try to increase 16 rounds. And we try to increase up to 64. So 64, if you can come to 64 rounds daily, that will be sufficient to make rapid progress and become enlightened in this life. So, but it takes some practice. It takes some years to slowly build up to that. And so when you get to this one, you turn around and go back the other way. This finger is not used in chanting, because this finger represents the ego. Because as soon as you become proud, you start pointing the fingers at everyone else. No one will hit you. What are you doing? I'll shoot you. So it signifies that the ego should be kept out of this business. Ego should be put to one side. This is not the self, and one should be absorbed in the divine names. So we'll be giving a seminar this evening from 6 till 8 with music and other interesting things going on in the Matui Tonga or something. I think it's called Matui Tonga. Matua Tonga,
Yeah.
which is one of the lecture halls in the Prana Festival from 6 to 8 tonight. If you'd like to come along, we'll be speaking more about the internal aspects of meditation, and also we'll be speaking about what can a regular ordinary person with a busy life do to make progress without necessarily running away from home and living in an ashram in India and meditating all day, right? Because very often, sometimes people, we were discussing this morning actually in our earlier discussion about how much determination and how much self-sacrifice is really required to attain perfection in spiritual life. And it's something immense, it's something that can be overwhelming. And so sometimes persons, when they come close to the spiritual path, then they start to tremble a little bit and feel like, wow, it's just like, no, that's just too much. Yeah, that's the resistance from the body and the mind and the senses, and that's natural, that's okay. And so, and one of the excuses that mind will say, oh, perhaps in another life, but not this one, when the mind is freaking out like that, one of the dualities or the excuses that comes up is this black and white distinction that it's all or nothing. And it isn't. It's never all or nothing. Every single person in their life, whoever they are, whatever they're doing, can begin the baby steps to move in the right direction. And as soon as you start to do something, momentum gathers, and then everything becomes, it's like a snowball. You know, it starts off small, but it will become more very powerful and eventually become consuming, but in a natural way, not in a forced way. So that's what I want to speak about in our seminar this afternoon, because there are different types of yoga: karma yoga, jnana yoga, ashtanga yoga, and bhakti yoga. And bhakti yoga is the pinnacle. We have to go there, but everyone's not ready for that. So very kindly in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna speaks about something for everyone, that we can start on the level we're at and make progress in the right direction. So this is going to be very practical in regard to meditation, and also just everyday lifestyle as well. So everyone can do something they feel comfortable with, but make very substantial progress as well. 6 to 8 at a place I cannot pronounce. Matua Tonga.
Yeah, that's it.
That's it, Matua Tonga? Okay.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes, yes.
Do you ever get the chance to talk about resurrection?
Resurrection of us as individuals, or of Jesus, or
There's both.
both? Yes, why not? In my childhood, I was raised in a Christian background, and I feel that by coming in contact with the Vedic culture, which is the mother culture, the Vedic language is Sanskrit, and even our English language is derived from Greek and Latin and Greek, and that from Sanskrit. So you'll see many connections between the languages. So this is the very ancient mother culture. I don't feel that I left the path of Christianity, but rather religion is universal. God is one, everyone is a soul, and the teaching of Jesus is essentially to love God with all your heart and soul, and to love your fellow man as you love yourself. This is the essence of the teaching. And so now the question is, just, okay, that's the teaching. How can we find the best way to apply it? How can we express that most perfectly in our own life? So as Jesus Christ taught his first teaching after Our Father who art in heaven, his next teaching is hallowed be thy name. And that's something that's very often overlooked, that we don't see Christians today in the general community spending many hours absorbed revering the name of God. I'm not saying, but if you go to some monasteries you will, you'll find the monks and they have a rosary and they spend hours just uttering the prayers with the names of Jesus or Mary and so on. So they do. So that is a universal principle. And now, as far as the topic of resurrection, we see that most, in Christian theology today, most believe that we have one life. And then you die, and then there's a judgment, and you'll either... We were talking today about the painting in the Sistine Chapel. Have you been in the Sistine Chapel? In the Vatican in Rome. At one end there's a huge, huge painting. And it's called the Last Judgment. And Jesus is in the middle, and he's going like this. And he's kind of turning away from the sinners, and they're all going down to Hades. And they're naked, and they're falling, and they're suffering, and burning, and being cut, and tortured, and everything like this. But on the other side, there are others who are going up towards heaven. It's very, very shocking. So the general idea among many Christians is that there's one life. And then at the end of that, then either you'll be resurrected or you'll go to eternal damnation. And but we find, if you study the writings of Christian mystics and you go back further and further, there are many who believed that we don't have one life. That we, at the end of our life, we die, and that means we take another body, and that's kind of like a judgment, because the next body is the reaction for the things that we did in the previous life. So it's like an ongoing judgment. And I do believe that if anyone is impartial and very reasonable, they would accept that conclusion as being more satisfying and more congruent with the idea of a merciful God. It's just like, let's say someone comes to court and they're in the dock in a court, and the magistrate is there, and we have to find out whether they're guilty or not guilty. So if the person is not guilty, then they're set free, and if they're guilty, then they're executed. Right? But what about what's the crime? Yeah? Is it right to execute? You've been found guilty of parking in the wrong place, so you'll be executed. You've been found guilty of stealing, whatever, $100. Okay, you'll be executed. You've been found guilty of murdering 10 people. Okay, can be executed, no problem. But the point is that if God is fair, if God is just, then it cannot be an on and off switch, where if you're guilty, you will be punished forever, and if you're innocent, you'll, like this. It's more congruous with a conception of an intelligent, loving and just God, that whatever punishment or reward is there, it should fit the crime, it should be appropriate. And having suffered the reaction for doing something wrong, then one has another chance for redemption. Right? And so karma, in the Vedic culture, the Sanskrit word is there, karma. Karma in Sanskrit comes from the verbal root kri, and the Greek krio, Latin krio, I do, I create, I make. So karma is the destiny that we make for ourselves by our own activities. And so God has put in place the natural justice of karma. And so if we do something wrong, then the amount of suffering that we gave to others just comes back to us. And when we've suffered that, then it's over. We have another chance, and so on. And so that's more in keeping with the concept of a just and loving God, but also somewhat strict, because a parent is strict. That's also a type of love, tough love. And that's very helpful, because the suffering of the world is not there so we can suffer. The suffering is there to make us question, and those who are not inquisitive to become inquisitive and to turn towards God. So it's correctional, as we said. The world is our correctional facility. So, in regard to resurrection of individual beings, that's usually tied with the concept of one life. You die and then either you're resurrected or you suffer. So in the Vedic culture, there is this idea of karma. And these are three ideas. These are three ideas which seamlessly integrate with each other to get a clear picture of reality. The first idea is the perfection of God. That God is perfect. Om Purnam Madaha Punamidam Purnat Purnamudachate Purnasya Punamadaya Purnameva Vasishyate. Means God is perfect, and whatever emanates from God is also perfect. Meaning that this world is perfect. But when we look at the world, and especially if you see the world from the perspective of one life, then you don't see perfection. You see someone is born poor, someone is born blind, someone is born very handsome, healthy, wealthy, talented. So if you all have one life, it's totally unfair, because no one gets equal opportunities here. You see that God is not an equal opportunities employer. So then he would be fined for discriminating against the oppressed minorities. Okay, so if we think that there's only one life, then there's no perfection anywhere. It's like the world is a chaos. It started with Adam and Eve and it was right, then they made a mistake, and after that the whole experiment went disastrously wrong for thousands of years. But don't worry, one day God will fix it. Now, the Vedas don't have that vision of God who's like, a mad scientist who did an experiment that went wrong and turned on him. Like Dr. Frankenstein. I wonder what will happen if I sew all these parts together and then put some electricity in. Then Frankenstein wakes up and runs after him to strangle him. Like that. No, God is not a mad scientist who does an experiment that goes wrong. The world is not like that. The Vedas say that God is perfect and His world is also perfect. And so what seems to be inequalities and problems and injustice actually isn't. It's just the ongoing justice is going on, but we're only seeing a small portion of it. Yeah? If you see a man just slapping a boy, then you might want to say, "Hey, stop that!" But you just arrived there. If you'd come 5 minutes early, you saw the boy was torturing a cat, and then you wouldn't be so bothered about seeing the man slap the boy. Like that, you see. So life is like that. We think that everything's wrong and it needs to be fixed. But if we could see the big picture of every individual's many lifetimes leading up to that, then we'll see that actually it's okay. The only thing that isn't okay is that the souls themselves, they're undergoing this because they've turned away from God. And so the true compassion is not to fix things, but the true compassion is to oneself to become God conscious and raise that God consciousness in others as well. Because if you just try to solve the material problem that a person is in, then first of all you just became involved in their karma, because it was their karma for it to be fixed, and you became instrumental for that, so you really didn't do anything. And then in addition to that, because their attitude hasn't changed, the very attitude that led them into suffering will lead them again into suffering. So you haven't fixed the situation. I have once I was in Mumbai with my Gurudev, and a doctor came to see him, and he said, I'm a doctor, and a patient came in. He had a gunshot wound and he was rushed into the emergency unit, and I did an operation. He was successful and he was saved, and when he was healthy he went out and killed 5 people like that. So what should I have done? Right? It's a moralistic dilemma. So I'm not going to answer that question, that's your homework. I will answer it, but not today. That's your homework. Think about that. Just chew over that. It's a moralistic dilemma. And it's very difficult. It can't be solved on the material platform. We have to look at things from a higher perspective to solve. What was his duty? What should he have done? So, so first, we're talking about 3 concepts that seamlessly fit together and make sense of everything. So the first one is that the perfection of God, and then the second concept is karma, that because God's perfect, therefore there is a universal cosmic justice which is unfolding at every moment. And then if we believe in that perfect cosmic justice, then because we see anomalies on the perspective of one life, then we must all have many lives. We must have many, many lives. So as soon as we connect with the concept of the perfection of God, then it naturally leads us to the conclusion of karma, and that naturally leads us to the conclusion of reincarnation as well. And all 3 fit together perfectly, and now all the questions have been answered. But if you take away reincarnation, the concept of reincarnation, or the concept of karma, then what will you be left with is a God who's basically like a mad scientist. You see? And then you will have, in your heart, you will have a grudge against God. You will have some deeply seated psychological issue of some anger towards God. And as long as that is there, we can never truly be devoted. We can only be devoted to, fully devoted to a person who's perfect. We can only be fully surrendered, fully dedicated, without any inhibition or hesitation, to one who's truly perfect. And so it's essential to embrace the understanding of karma and reincarnation, to make our peace with God, and then our devotion can really flourish. Now, in regard to the resurrection of Jesus, why not? Huh? If someone has devotion to God, then all mystic powers automatically come. And one of the yogic powers is the ability to stop your heartbeat, to stop your breath. It's the pranayama. Pranayama. Everyone knows pranayama. What does it mean? Pran is the subtle life air which is externally experienced as our breathing, and ayama means to extend. So in pranayama you practice breathing slowly, and you gradually extend the amount of time it takes to complete one inhalation, retention and exhalation. And you slowly practice every day over a long period of time until the breathing becomes one breath. Takes a very, very long time. And eventually the yogi can stop the breathing completely as well. So those who have pure devotion to God, even without the practice, they're able to do that as well. So that people saw that the body of Jesus was dead, that he'd been killed, and so on. There was no pulse, no heartbeat or anything like this. This is not But of course, at that time, everyone was weeping in separation. That our master has died. And separation is very deep emotion. And when you lose someone, you appreciate them more. When you lose someone, you remember them. You start to appreciate things about them in a way that you didn't when they were there, things that you may have taken for granted. And so Jesus has this very wonderful pastime of his death, so-called death, and then being resurrected again. And after separation, the joy of meeting is more intense. And so this play, everything that God does is play. And so when God manifests this Leela of Jesus, it's there to catch our sympathy, to capture our heart with the drama, and make us deeply remember Him and the joy of His resurrection. And by following, because Jesus said, I am the way. That doesn't mean join my club. It means the way that I live my life is the way that you should live your life. So if someone else in another country, in another religion, is on that way, the way of devotion, the way of self-sacrifice, the way of humility and compassion, then they're also Christian. They're also following the way. So by remembering this pastime, by becoming absorbed in Him and remembering Him, then our life, our activities and thoughts conform to His thoughts, and then we're on the way. And that way leads to eternal life. Eternal life means that instead of dying again and again, reincarnation, one becomes liberated and in a spiritual form enters the spiritual world. So Jesus was teaching Bhakti Yoga, the yoga of devotion. We're also teaching Bhakti Yoga. And is it the same? Yes. And is it different? Yes. Also different. And because the kingdom of God is a very vast place with many different dimensions, and the soul can join God in different types of Leela. So in the Vedic culture, there's actually, and this is a speciality of the Vedic knowledge, there's a lot of information of what the spiritual world is like, and what the different dimensions are like. And each soul may be attracted to a different type of dimension and type of relationship. And the Guru, the spiritual master, essentially refines that soul's focus on that goal so that they can attain their spiritual goal. That's the role of the Guru. Thank you for your question.
Thanks for that.
Does that make sense?
Very good. Thanks.
Any other question? Oh, well, maybe this evening. So let's have a little kirtan for just a couple of minutes, and then everyone can have a break, and at 6 we'll be there in the festival. Radhe, Jai Jai Shri Radhe. So thank you for sharing these priceless moments.